The Premier Accounting Firm. This is a podcast dedicated to helping owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses offer quality accounting services and getting paid what they're worth. It's here that we talk to the experts, find out what it is we can be doing to actually work on our businesses and offer quality services. So with that in mind, I'm excited each and every week to bring on the guests, and today's going to be a wonderful episode with Wendy Barlin. She is more than just an accountant. She is a business strategist and financial confidant. Her specialty happens to be taking all the tedious financial chores off the shoulders of business professionals and business owners so that they can focus on the areas where they excel. Her professional experience spans more than 20 years in the industry as a diverse and hospitality, entertainment, manufacturing, and retail industries. Now, Wendy is committed to her clients' success, whether establishing cost-cutting computer systems for them, negotiating with their banks or vendors, or analyzing their cash flow. She ensures that all their financial decisions lead to greater profits. So Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This is going to be a lot of fun. Wendy, you're an accountant by trade. Give me an idea. Why'd you start into accounting? Why'd you become an accountant?
Well, when I was a little girl, I wanted the knight in shining armor that was going to come on the horse, right? I grew up in South Africa, and I realized probably by the time I was 13, that knight wasn't coming, and the whole Disney princess theme yet wasn't a real thing. So I decided to pick something that would always keep a roof over my head, that would always allow me to have enough money to pay for myself. I grew up in a very traditional South African family where my dad held all the purse strings and my mother had nothing. And anytime I would say to her, let's leave, let's get out of here, he is not a nice guy, she'd say to me, we have no choice, I have nothing. And I said, that's not going to be me. So not a sexy choice, but accounting has actually become a lot more fun than it used to be 25 years ago when I got started.
So you're not saying it's a sexy choice, but I would definitely say it's liberating. It's one of those things where it's very universal in its application. It's the language of business. And I think you would have to attest to the fact that it did ultimately do that for you, didn't it?
100%. Everything I have today is because I was in the accounting community and I was able to provide for myself and really choose my path. I came to this country with nothing but a bag of dirty clothes. I had an education. I was fortunate. I had a chartered accountancy license and a bag of dirty clothes. And then everything I have is trial and error and learning my way. And so I'm a huge fan of the American dream.
So with that in mind, why'd you start your accounting business? I mean, it's one thing to be an accountant and get a job and have a career, but you started a business as well, offering accounting services. Where did the entrepreneurial drive come from? Clearly, you've already shared a little bit of that.
Right. Well, I was also frustrated. I went from firm to firm to firm, and every time it was the same thing. It was about the billable hour. I was never promoted because of my great work or because of my client relationships. I was only going to get promoted if I did X number of billable hours, and that made no sense to me. It was so frustrating to watch my colleagues who weren't really any good bill a ton of hours and get promoted. And so after, I think I was at 3 firms before I just said, enough, there has to be a better way to do this. And I went out on my own.
So you started your business. What were some of the services that you offered?
Well, I started with tax because that's what I knew. And everybody needs a tax return. So it's kind of an easy sell. So I started in tax, and I found out very quickly that running your own firm is not quite as easy as it looks. And there's a lot more to it than just doing tax returns and having happy clients. So, I zigged and I zagged and I this way and that way. But ultimately, the real growth came from buying a firm. And I ended up buying 2 firms over the period of my career and then using those as a base to grow, because otherwise it was frustrating. It was like, get 2 clients, lose a client, get 2 clients, lose a client. So that stepping out of my comfort zone and buying 2 firms really is what kind of gave me the big boost into an area to grow quicker.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. It definitely accelerates that growth and that success. So that's 2 firms that you acquired. I'd like to know, what lessons did you learn from that process, but also how did you determine the offer price? How did you come to how to value the business that you were considering purchasing?
Yeah, well, I was kind of a newbie, so I think I overpaid. And I really wanted to buy, and I was anxious to get the deal done. So I paid what they asked. Maybe now in retrospect, advising other firms, I might not have done that, but I didn't know any different. So I paid what they asked. And it was scary, because I had payouts, I had taken on loans. I didn't have the cash in the bank to buy. So I took out loans and I did cash payment plans. And I think what I learned is it's never going to be smooth. The numbers worked out about right in that I lost 20% of the business for a multitude of reasons that
Yeah.
happened. But the 80% that stayed grew on itself and really was the door opener for me. I had a couple of bad experiences. One I could not have foreseen, but one of the clients that I purchased ended up with a very big IRS audit that I managed the audit, and I billed the client for the audit fees. And then the seller wanted payout on that audit. And I said, hang on, like that's not fair. I'm paying you on recurring revenue. I'm not paying you on an audit. You caused the audit. I had to fix it. I should keep the revenue. But we would have ended up in court. And for what? So I ended up just sucking it up and paying them their fees on it, even though it really hurt my gut to do that. It was one of those big picture things where I had to say to myself, do I want to fight, be with lawyers, spend all this money on legal fees? I'm talking about the next 30 years of my career. I'm going to let it go. But that was one of the things that could not have been foreseen, that now when I work with people buying and selling, we kind of talk through a lot of those what ifs that nobody kind of, raised my eyes to.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that in because it's kind of like a lesson learned that you're sharing here. And I appreciate it because those are some of the things that are unforeseeable. And so that's
Right.
something that we need to know.
Right. And then just to have someone to say to you, let it go. Let it go. It's not about the $20,000 now. I know that feels like a lot of money. I had debt to pay. I had a mortgage, but you got to keep your eye on the prize. Where are you going? What do you want to accomplish? And is it worth the current fight, which is only going to bring you down, or raise you up and keep your eye on the prize?
Yeah, very good advice. Now, you mentioned the 20% attrition. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people also will ask about. What can they expect as they're acquiring the firm? You mentioned 20%. So I do want to know, in both instances, did you acquire the firm and they immediately walk, or was there a transition period? Did they actually take the time to introduce you to the clients and have that transition? Tell us about each of those different purchases.
Yeah, so I think anyone that believes they're going to keep 100% is foolhardy. It just won't happen. It's somewhere you're going to lose some people. Some of them have just been waiting for an opportunity to leave anyway, to go with their brother or their cousin or do it themselves. And some people just didn't like me. They just didn't, and that's okay because we're all different, and there's plenty of work out there. The best transition was the larger firm, which was actually two partners. And that transition was a 3-month transition where for November 15th through December, I sat with them on every call for every tax planning session, so that by the time the owners left, and these were now my clients, they'd kind of already seen me. I had participated in the conversations. They'd heard my voice. They'd seen my style. And that was a much easier transition. The one person firm that I purchased, we didn't do that. So it was much harder for me to retain those relationships. I really had to step up and play nice that much more than a firm where I had already committed the time, because those 6 or 8 weeks in November and then the first few weeks in January that I committed, I didn't get paid for. That was just me sitting there with the current owners. They were keeping the money through December for all that tax planning. I really just gave of my time, again, as an investment in my future and the long run of the success of the firm, for me to be on every call. And I highly recommend that for anyone that has a chance to really soften that letter coming in the mail that says, by the way, now you're working with Roger. Wendy's gone to the Bahamas to lie on the beach and drink Mai Tais.
Well, I can share that the feedback I've gotten has expressed that what you just described is the better option, when you can actually have that former owner stay on for a transition period of time. But what you spoke of is a little different. It wasn't that they stayed on after the transition and helped with that. You were saying that you actually went into the firm and were giving of your time before the transaction had actually taken place. And so that was a nuance that I noted there. And so it's not something I've heard before, but clearly that overlap is something that people speak of favorably, that the clients are at least introduced to, and there's a kind of a breathing period time there where they're able to kind of get accustomed to you and become acquainted with your
Yeah.
services. So yeah, I like what you're describing. So when you're talking about growth, the one of the things that's helpful in your case were the two acquisitions that you had done. Would you add anything more as to the best ways to grow as from a strategy point of view, a bookkeeping, accounting, or tax business?
Oh, so many. So I started, with 6 figures, and I ended up with at 7 figures at the end of 10 years. There's so many fantastic strategies. I did not advertise. I never spent money on Google AdWords or Facebook. I did a lot of this. I spoke on stages, podcast guesting, and really the best growth was clients referring other clients, clients referring friends. And then the businesses that you're working with, they grow and they want more services and they want more of you. And that really I found to be the best way to grow was my existing clients to help them grow, because then I grow.
Yep. Now, I know that you have an opinion on remote work. Does it work? Is it helpful? Is it something that we should be doing as a profession? What are your thoughts?
I have a lot of opinions, but probably one of my strongest is, in fact, remote work. And my other strong opinion that kind of goes hand in hand with that is this rhetoric in the marketplace of there's no good people to hire. I can't stand that. That is so not true. But to your point about remote work, in 2016, I had a gorgeous office in Los Angeles, Brentwood, for anyone that's been there. Beautiful patio, green trees. And because I was the rainmaker for my firm, I would get up early in the morning and go to breakfast and work late, taking clients to dinner. And I came into my office one day, I was tired. It was about 9:15, 9:30. I come in and my team are all sitting around. One's talking to his mom, the other one's on Facebook. And I had just had enough. There was plenty of work to do. They didn't need to be waiting for me. I said, everybody get your stuff, get out of my office, get out. You're all fired. I want you gone. Of course, my husband, I came home and told him this, and he's like, oh, we're going to be homeless. What's going to happen to us? Never fear. I hired myself a consultant, and the very next day, we moved the firm up to the cloud. And I got rid of the office, and I set about hiring national US-based team, a team in India, and a team in the Philippines. And I learned by trial and error how to manage a remote firm. And I'll tell you, it's different. You don't have to be there at 9 o'clock. I don't log in and make sure everyone's mouse is moving. I don't sit there at 5 o'clock and wait to see who's logging off. I give people tasks. I give them my expectations. I give them their due dates, and then they get the work done. This is how you grow a team who are responsible and respectful of the work that they're doing. And I know I make it sound easy. It's not that easy, but that's really the goal. And it took me years to get there.
So I'm going to share that there are some best practices in doing this, and I'm sure you've got some insights on it. But clearly, with the remote team, the process, what the expectations are, you've already addressed that. It's those tasks that they need to perform. Once they're clearly defined, they're able to do them, and it's either they did or didn't do them. So I think that really enhances your ability to manage the people and not so much fixate on when they're working, but more importantly, make sure they're doing what's needed to be done and doing it effectively and efficiently. So now the question simply becomes, you did the US based remote worker, you did the offshore, you indicated India and Philippines. What's the difference in your mind, if any, as it relates to somebody that's offshore and those that are US based? Is there any distinction in your mind between the two?
Right now, as I'm sitting here, none. People are people, your team are your team. We treat them all the same. Everyone is invested or not invested in your growth and their growth. When I started, I didn't know that. I thought, oh, you just hand offshore people work and they do it, and then it's done. And then it comes back and we send it to the client. And it really took me time to learn that my offshore team are just like the people in my office. They need the same training. They need the same coaching. We all adhere to the same standards. So right now, when I work with firm owners, we treat everybody the same.
I
That's
love
best
that.
practices, in my opinion.
I love that because you're right. They are people, and we're just asking that work get done. And whether they succeed or fail is oftentimes a reflection on how well we were defining the work that we expected. So, yeah, very well said. So, how do you find A players? You spoke of
Yeah.
wanting good people and that they
Yeah.
do exist. How do you define an A person, and how do you find them? How do you pick them out of the crowd?
Right. Well, I think the issue that I see in the marketplace today, and you're welcome to tell me if I'm crazy. It wouldn't be the first time I've been called crazy. The issue that I see in the marketplace today is not the A players. They are there, and we can talk about that. But really, the issue that I'm finding is the hiring partners, the firms, they don't know what they want. They're like, we need a tax manager. Okay, what does this person need to do, and what kind of personality do they have? Who are they? Well, I don't know. They need to review returns, and sometimes they need to fix returns, and sometimes it's overwhelming. How can you ever find someone if you're not clear who you're hiring? That's the one piece, is the org charts are a mess. The second piece is that some firms are just not nice places to go. I was working with a firm in Orlando, and that's about 3 hours from my office. So I actually drove there, and I'm glad I did, because the place was awful. I mean, the water cooler had mold around the top. The apples in the bowl at the front desk were moldy, and they're telling me they can't find any A players. Well, really? You can't? That's shocking to me that no A player wants to work here. Wow. And then the same for my remote companies. I'll talk to remote businesses and they'll say the same thing. Can't find anyone to hire. Okay, tell me what happens. Well, these are the 12 different logins that someone has to log into every day to do their work. And then we judge them on, how many hours and what their response time is. If they don't respond in Slack within 6 minutes, what? And you can't find A players? This is horrifying. So I ask my clients to look in the mirror before they say there's no one good to hire, because there are at least 3 firms that I'm working with here in Florida who have fantastic retention. No one ever leaves. I was just working with a firm that had 6 people come from a university excited to work with them. They won't leave because it's a great place to work. I want to work there. So make it a place that an A player wants to work, and then you'll find them. I absolutely promise. My inbox is full of A players saying to me, Wendy, look at where I'm working. Look what's going on. Can you help me find something better? So people are out there, they're looking for something better. It's our responsibility to offer them something better. That's my soapbox about hiring.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to add to it, actually. There's a few things that I took away from what you were sharing. I'm going to add to it. The first thing is to recognize that when the unemployment rate is as low as it is, people do want to use the idea of there's no one out there to hire. Well, they are. They're just employed. So the first thing you have to recognize is just putting out a job listing, say on Indeed and so forth, isn't going to be effective, because the people who are unemployed are oftentimes the lesser employable. And so if you want your A players, generally speaking, they've got a job somewhere else. And so you've got to be willing to actually now take them from where they're currently working and give them a reason to come to your place. So it's an employed individual. That's the first thing. You've got to recognize that the A players are generally employed. And so how do you take somebody that's not actively looking for employment? They're not looking on the job boards. How do you take them and find them and draw them your way? Well, there's a few things you need to do, and you addressed one of them, which is your own culture. What's the work-life environment that you're providing? And if it's micromanaging and it's very intimidating, who wants to come to that? And it's a reflection of who wants to stay as well. And so fortunately for me, I've got a business. I've been in the same company now for 25 years. I've worked at the same business for 25 years. I have staff that I've worked with now for 10, 15, 25 years. So those individuals, what have we done? We've stayed with the company, and it's not typical. Most people are job hopping. They're going, 3 years here, 3 years there. So you've got to create an environment where people feel like they're appreciated, valued, that they're contributing, that they're part of something bigger than themselves. So that addresses, where do you find them? They're employed. How do you retain them? You got to have a great work environment, a great culture, and you got to find that cultural fit. But the third thing that I'm going to add to it is the fact that you need to actually see them as who they are. You've got to be able to train and invest in them. They've got to feel that you're able to give them a career path, not a job. People don't look for jobs. They want to feel like they're part of something and that they're going to be better because of that employment. And so if you can provide that to them, they're going to be enticed to come over. So those are just a few things that I would add to what it is you're sharing. And as it relates to remote work, what we want to do is obviously kind of meet them where they are. And you've got to be able to provide to them a path for success, not just you work remotely. It's here's how you get your job done and can do it successfully, and we'll pay you for it. So all that being said, I want to come to the question now. If you sold your business, you sold it, moved on, what was that sell experience like?
Well, I thought it was going to be great. I'd done 25 tax seasons. I was so excited to never do another one. And I'll tell you 2 things. You need to have a plan. because I spent a year helping with the transition, and a year was too long. Of course, here comes my gardener. A year was too long. It created a little bit of confusion for the clients about who's actually in charge here.
Yep.
So I don't know that I would recommend someone stay a full year. It was a little long. The other piece is know what you're going to do after, because I thought I was just going to play tennis and play golf and be a stay-at-home mom. And after the third tennis game, where literally these women were talking about the kind of bronzer they use on their feet, I came home and I said to my husband, I'm going back to work. This is not for me. So now when I work with firm owners who come to me and they're like, Wendy, you got to get me out. Get me out. Find me a buyer. I'm done. I say, that's great. I get it. But what's your plan? What's your plan? Because when you've worked in the intense environment that we have, and we love what we do, we truly love what we do, then sitting at home or sitting on the beach with those quintessential feet up, it's not going to work, in my opinion. So we have to have a better transition plan for our sellers on the way out.
I really appreciate you bringing this up, because when I work with firm owners, and I'm also involved with that transition, that idea of I'm going to now leave and go off and do something else, there's a few things that I would add to what you shared. One is many people are entrepreneurial. They'll actually start something and move on to something else. But many a times with a good exit, they're very happy with, okay, I built this. It's an asset. I got paid well for it. I'm happy with this exit. But the problem comes not at the time of the sale. They'll go buy the car, they'll go on the trip that they wanted to. They'll have that celebratory moment, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is now go out 6 months, go out 8 months. The first thing you have to understand is many business owners, if they don't have some purpose after the fact, they become depressed. Why?
Correct.
Their identity is tied up in the business. So many years they've been identified as the owner of a successful business, and now all of a sudden they can't hold that any longer. And so their identity is lost. It's very much like a death or a divorce. And so you have to understand that, first of all, you have to have purpose on the other side of the transaction. The second thing you have to understand is we are, as entrepreneurs, very driven individuals. We're staying up late, working long hours because we have passion for something. Well, now we just sold our passion. And so when we wake up in the morning, 6 months, 8 months from now, playing tennis, it's not going to meet that need all the time.
Right.
It's not that thing that gives you that drive to say, I'm going to get up early. So all of a sudden what happens is your weight goes out, you start eating unhealthily, you end up, you watched all the movies you wanted to watch, you played the tennis or the golf that you wanted to, you've gone on the cruises that you wanted to. Well, at the end of the day, a year later, it's like, what do I do now? What's my purpose? And you don't have any passion any longer. And so what we're trying to do here is you and I, we're bringing up the fact that if we can help the business owner identify that next chapter in their life, help them get more of a perspective of, okay, what are you going to do now to make a difference? You give them that purpose. It's a smoother transition. It's an easier one in which they're able to monetarily gain and now go be what they want to be next. And for some people, it's like you just said, I got to go back to work. I've got to figure this out. And so that's a good conversation. Would you add anything more to that experience or evolution that you've gone through yourself and also witnessed?
Well, I think I would add that a lot of the sellers that I'm having conversations with today feel like if they can stay at the firm for 3 to 5 years, that's their plan. And I don't really think that's fair to the buyer. I don't think that's fair to the clients. I'm not a fan of that plan. Stay as long as you need to transition, but then get out, make a clean break, because there are so many other ways in this world that we can use your skill set that trying to hang on, I just don't think it benefits anybody. And I think it often sours the taste of the transaction. So if anybody's listening and they think that 3 to 5 year hanging on plan is a good one, I don't personally recommend that.
And you did it for a year and still thought that was too long. So you're saying months, right? Yeah, I agree. I definitely
get through that tax season, get through that tax planning session, and then be around. I still talk to my friend who purchased my firm. And if he needs something, he'll call me and say, hey, Wendy, remind me what Lisa's issue was again. Happy to do it because I love these people. I want to see them taken care of. But the formal arrangement of sitting there for a year responding to emails, it muddies the waters.
Yeah, very good advice. I like it. All right. So obviously in your case, bronzing your feet wasn't worth it. And so you went back to work. So you started a consulting business where you do work with owners now. Tell us one of the things that you found that really helped you meet their needs. What are you finding that the business owner is struggling with that you're finding they're able to confide in you?
I'm definitely seeing many firms who are struggling with this hiring epidemic problem that they've got entrenched in them. There's no one to work. What am I'm just going to have to work 7 days a week or sell. And so I think the very first thing I do is an assessment of their organizational chart. Who does what? Who's where in the firm? That's usually where I start. And then we look at the processes, and then we look at the profitability. So I usually do people, process, profit. Most of the time, people come to me with a simple question, and I don't know if you hear the same thing. Wendy, somebody told me to call you. I'm trying to decide what workflow software to pick. Like that's a quick answer. No problem. You should pick that one, like a car. Should I buy an Audi or should I buy a BMW? And I tell them, that's not your question. Thank you for that question. But before we can answer it, we have to find out what's going on in your firm. Do you need a workflow system? I mean, everybody does, but let's assume. Let's look at your processes, because first we design the processes. Then we decide on the system to support them. I see so much shiny object syndrome of people switching softwares year to year, going to this tax software and that workflow because they're looking for a solution, but that's not where the solution is. The solution lies with them. Same with the people and the hiring. The solution lies with the owner. And so that's a lot of the work that I'm doing, is people calling with what they think is an easy question. And then when I start asking questions, then we start to realize there's more to it.
Very good. I like this. So I kind of want to go backwards a little bit here, because I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. In selling your business, did you have any regrets?
Ooh, that's a big one. Do we have an hour for therapy? I think I wouldn't say regrets. I would say that I miss my clients, and I wasn't prepared for how that would feel. So a lot of these people, I watched their kids grow up. I helped them buy their first home. I was part of their lives for many years, 15 years, sometimes more. And losing that relationship was very hard emotionally. I still wake up some days and go, oh, I wonder what's going on with John's family. I wonder if his daughter actually ever graduated. And so that for me was emotionally very difficult. And I still have days where I think about people who were in my life for all those years and are now just gone. They're gone. And so for those people out there who think, and this is really an ego issue that I think we will have to deal with, it wasn't about me. I thought it was about me. My clients love me. I mean, they like me well enough, but they love who's going to get the job done and who's going to get it done well and timely. And for a while, that was me. But then when it's not me and it's someone else, now they love someone else. And that was really a personal thing. Again, this is not a therapy session, but just saying that is something that firm owners who are that close to their people think about. And the same with my team. You know, I miss my team. I sometimes send them messages on LinkedIn. They sometimes send me messages because I miss them. I was involved in their lives, and now they're just gone. You know, you sign the paperwork and it's gone. So that's something that I think we all need to kind of take a moment and think about.
Well, I'm liking this therapy sessions because I've had it one too many times with individuals that I work with as they're selling their businesses, and I'm hearing similar things. So I appreciate you being very open about this. The other thing I wanted to ask is, then, having done the transaction and selling or having sold your business and seeing others do the same, when do you feel is a good time to actually sell a company?
There's never a good time to sell. There's never a good time to get married. There's never a good time to have kids. There's never a good time to buy a house. It's when it's right for you. So for me, the timing was right in that my firm was very progressive. It was 2021, middle of COVID. I was far ahead of the game. I was completely remote. I had no receivables. Everybody was on CFO services, and I had a team across the world. So my firm was very desirable, which allowed me to get multiple offers and really drive that price up. And so for me as a business owner, my advice was, now's the time to sell. And so for everybody that's different. And a lot of the business owners that I speak to ask me, when's the time? When it's right for you, when you are ready to take that next step, if there's something else you want to do, if you're just bored and you don't see a way out, or everybody seems to have a different reason today. But I wish there was a right time. But in my experience, there is no right time. It's when it's right for you.
I like that. Good answer. No, and I appreciate the fact that there's no right time to get married, no right time to have kids. Well, I'll push back a little bit on that. You need to act. Now is the right time to get married. Now is the right time to have kids.
Well,
Now
that's
is the right
true.
time to sell business. But you're
That's
right. It's a
true.
personal decision, and it's definitely something that somebody needs to decide for themselves. No one else can make that choice for you. So it's
That's
a
true.
very good point. All right. So you and I, we're working with clients, and as we work with these accounting firms, I know CAS comes up quite a bit. Client accounting services. This whole
Yeah.
idea of being full service, offering the bookkeeping, the accounting, the tax planning preparation, the CFO advisory. I mean, a lot of these things come in. I've recently written a book about this, but you have an opinion about it. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Why should I offer CAS services and become that one-stop shop for a client?
Well, I think we need to be very clear about what that is. Like you said, it encompasses a whole lot of things. And what I'm seeing in the marketplace is people say two things. One, we're adding CAS services, and you, Wendy, you're going to be in charge of that. You don't know anything about it, but you're in charge of that. And now you become like the redheaded stepchild of the firm, right? And also, it ends up being glorified bookkeeping. So I'm seeing a lot of firms kind of, because it's the trendy thing to do and they see it as a good profit center, they're adding a CAS line, but it really is glorified bookkeeping because they have not solved the consulting strategic CFO piece. And in my experience, if you don't have that, and I'm not saying it has to be full-blown CFO services because that's another whole animal, but if you don't have someone between the person reviewing the monthly financials and the client, then you don't really have a CAS practice. You have a great bookkeeping practice, which I love. Bookkeeping practices make a lot of money. I love them. But you don't have a CAS practice. A CAS practice is where, in my opinion, you have someone in between the bookkeeping team and the client and the tax person working with the client every month on their strategy, their numbers, their KPI. And that's where a lot of firms are getting stuck. And that's where they need our help because they have choices. In my experience, either we train up the existing managers to become those CFO strategist consultants, or we hire them in and we train them on how we want them to manage these relationships. But simply to say, you're a good accountant, you're in charge of CAS, here's a bookkeeping team, go do it. I've seen that really just become kind of like a fight between the bookkeeping and the tax department. And I haven't seen any happy endings there. I don't know if your experience has been the same.
Well, what you're describing is, I think, a very common experience. And the thing that I'd add to what you just shared is, first of all, the importance of defining what these services
Yes.
are, because I do feel that as an accounting profession, we struggle to appropriately define what they actually represent. What is
Yeah.
bookkeeping? What is
Yeah.
accounting? What is CFO services? What is advisory services? We tend to use these terms almost interchangeably, when
Right.
in my opinion, they are not. They are very
Correct.
distinct. And what we do is we further confuse our business clients
Yeah.
because they don't know what we're talking about. We think
Right.
we know what we're talking about, but we use them interchangeably. So the problem is we've got a frustration within the accounting profession. We've got a frustration outside in the business community because we're just using words as if they're flippantly meaning
Yep.
anything and everything. What we're needing to do is become a lot more intentional with what we're defining our services to be,
Agree.
what that customer experience is, what is bookkeeping. And so when I wrote my book, I was very intentional to say this is what needs to be happening within the accounting profession to better help our clients and, more importantly, better meet their needs, because
Right.
that's the way we're going to wow them, is
Right.
manage expectations. And so if we're saying we're doing bookkeeping services, what should our client expect? If we're saying we're offering accounting services, what
Yeah.
should the client expect? So I really appreciate this dialogue that we're having, because it is something that is very timely right now. It's going on
And
now.
the other piece that we see is a client would come to me and I look at their P&L and they
Uh-huh.
spent $25,000 on CFO services with someone else. And I'll look at them and say, what is this? What did you buy? What are you getting? Explain to me what is the value proposition of what you're getting. And very often they kind of don't even know, other than the marketplace is telling them they need CFO services. So they went out and they bought it. And it's something that we could, should, and can offer if we do it right and claw back that money. Because I'll tell you, the other piece that happens is then, as the tax person and or the bookkeeping piece, I often end up in a somewhat controversial situation with that CFO who is now giving advice that doesn't match my tax advice, or moving things around on the P&L that is giving my bookkeepers hours and hours of headaches. So somewhere in there is the solution, and that's why I like the idea of a full CAS firm, only if it can be done right.
Well, the thing that I would say to kind of take the done right statement and run with it is, first of all, clarify done right does not mean that the business owner, the accounting firm owner, does it all. You can
Right.
actually have on staff the bookkeeping staff, the accounting
Correct.
staff, the tax specialist. It doesn't mean you're that be all end all for your client. So
Correct.
I think it's intimidating for the owner to simply say, I think I want to move from bookkeeping services into accounting services. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean you're the accountant for the client. It's the same then when you move into tax planning or tax preparation, or when you're moving into CFO and advisory. It doesn't mean as your firm is growing and offering these services that you have to be the be all end all for it. Once that clarity comes for the client, my client suddenly realizes, oh, I guess I'm running a business, and the business I'm offering or that I'm running is an accounting business. And the services I offer are these services. And clearly I need to employ individuals that can service those needs for my clients. That perspective oftentimes is very game changing for them, is to realize, oh, I guess I'm what I refer to as an accountrepreneur. So that's kind of how that evolution typically goes for my clients. I've got some questions here I'd like to actually ask you now. You brought up your upbringing, being that from South Africa, you had your parents. I want to ask, what would your mom think of what it is you've accomplished, having built a successful accounting business and now having this consulting service that you provide? What would your mom think of where you are and how you got here?
Well, I'm fortunate, and my parents are extremely proud. My mom's extremely proud of what I've accomplished and what I have done for myself with very little help. But they also think I'm a little crazy because I'm always doing something else, and I've always got my hand in something else. And so there's a part of my family who think, she's a little different. I mean, when I called them, so I left home when I was 25. I packed a bag and I backpacked around the world by myself for a year. And I happened to be in Los Angeles in California, and I called home and I said to my parents, I love it here. I'm going to stay. I'm going to figure it out. I'm not coming back. And of course, all they saw on television was Rodney King riots. That's all they knew of Los Angeles. And so they were like, no, you can't. That's the worst thing ever. Go stay with your cousins in Toronto where you'll be safe. Anyway, and so ever since that day, my parents have never been surprised when I call them and say, guess what? You know, in 2021, I'm selling my firm, packed my family up. We were living in Los Angeles, packed my family into an RV and went east on the 10 freeway. And we relocated at the end of the 10 freeway where it meets the Atlantic Ocean. So nothing surprises them anymore, but they are proud.
I love it. I love it. And I wanted to distinctly ask from your mother to your father, what does your father think? Both of them are proud of you. Anything specific about what your father would think?
Well, my father was a business owner himself. He grew up on the wrong side of the tracks and built himself a business, never went to college. I was the first person in my family to go to college. He was always a little concerned because he's old school. And even though he was an entrepreneur, he wanted me to just get married. So when it came to going to college, he said to me, Wendy, I will pay for 1 year and you best find yourself a husband because I'm not paying for another year. And so I think there was always a piece of him that worried, you know, what if something happens to you? Who's going to take care of you? And so he was always proud and astounded at what I'd accomplished, but he was also always very concerned because he was worried that I didn't have a good plan B.
Very good. How about this? What advice would you give to your younger self as you consider the path that you went on, starting your business as you did? What would you say to that younger self as they were considering, do I go out and actually start my own business?
This really is like therapy. I would say to slow down. I move fast. I talk fast. I make big decisions. I'm always moving the goalposts. Let's try this. Let's try that. And I think I would tell myself to slow down and breathe. I had so many fantastic experiences that I think maybe I didn't make the most of, or maybe I wasn't really in the moment because I was so busy looking at what's next. Okay, now we got to go here. Now we got to go there, keep moving. And even today, I really find myself through meditation, which is not easy for me, to try and really savor my moments with my children, with my family, in what I do every day, and just slow down.
Very good. Your children, what do you hope that they're taking from this, watching their mother go out there, start a business,
Yep.
be successful as you have, now starting the consulting business that you have? What are you hoping they're learning from this and taking from observing you?
Yeah, I hope that they take the American dream seriously, and that you really can do anything and be anything that you want to. I have my concerns that TikTok has kind of ruined their path a little bit, but I truly hope that they see the love of what I do, because I try and explain to them that there's work, which is a job that you go to every day and you do what needs to be done because you need to feed your family, and that's a responsibility. But then there's the work that we love. And that's different. So when I say I'm going to work today, I don't say I have to go to work today. I say I want to go to work today, and I want them to understand the difference.
Huge difference. I say I get to go to work. I'm giddy
That's
about it.
exactly right. That's
Yep.
exactly
Yeah,
right.
I get to go to work today. This is awesome.
Because
All right.
sometimes my son will say, Mommy, do you have to work today? And I'll say, I don't have to. I choose to. I have some fantastic client calls I'm looking forward to, but I'll be done at 3 o'clock and then we can go to the beach, or whatever it is, to try and reframe that conversation of have to work.
Yep. There is very little. I can't even think of anything. I'm assuming something exists, but there's nothing right now that comes to mind that I dread doing. I enjoy the work I do. I feel accomplished, successful. I feel I'm making a difference. I enjoy the people I interact with. I mean, why wouldn't I want to do this? This is a lot of fun. So yeah, and I get paid. So
Still have
there you
some
go.
hard days. I still have. I mean, when I've got to tell a firm owner that the apples at the front desk are really disgusting, and that it's time that they move on, and that, even if they pick this software, it's not going to be up and running, and they're going to have a great tax season. It's going to be 3 years before we can get them there. So yeah, some days.
Well, in reality, now that you mention it, I do have some employees that are struggling. So yes, there's those challenges of how do you approach that issue where their performance is lacking. And so, yeah, there's things going on, but I've got the skills and the abilities and the confidence that I think
And the
I'm
big
fine there.
picture, right? It's about
Yeah.
the big picture. And for me,
Yeah.
it's about the big picture, that I get up every day making a choice. I make a
Yes.
choice.
Yep.
And that for me, that's what I tell my kids. I just want you to have choices in this life. And I feel like you're making a choice, and I'm making a choice every day of how we spend our time, who we help. If somebody is rude and disrespectful, I just choose not to work with them anymore, because they're showing me who they are, and that's my choice. So I feel like the power of choice is really what gives us that sense of, I'm doing good. Okay.
I love it. Excellent choice of words there. I love it. All right. Last question. What are you grateful for?
I'm grateful that I have the flexibility to work remotely and choose what I do every day. So if I can get up and take my dog for a walk and not have to clock in at a desk at a clock every single day, I am extremely grateful.
Very good. You know what? That's wonderful because of the choice that you've got there. That's wonderful. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap this up here and come back to you for a closing thought. As I wrap this up, there's a few things that I'd like to highlight. One of the things is Wendy's been very, very kind to offer her time and would love to connect with each of you as listeners. So for my listeners, I'm going to invite you to go to the episode description. There you'll find information on how it is that you can connect with Wendy. So definitely take advantage of that. She's got a wonderful program, excellent things that she's doing to help accounting professionals, and it's definitely something you ought to consider. In addition to that, I want you to go to the episode description because we've got some insights there that you definitely want to take advantage of. One of which is the book I mentioned earlier. It is called Your Strategic Accountant. This is a book written to actually address the issues that I feel we're facing as a profession when it comes to defining the services that we're offering and meeting the needs of our clients. It's what is bookkeeping, what is accounting, and what are those things that they are paying for that you should be providing? What is it that you can do to become, for your clients, their strategic accountant? So definitely check out that. It's a free book, and I would encourage you to take advantage of it today. In addition to the business, one of the things that I'd also want to point out is the turnkey business business plan for accounting professionals. This is what you can proactively do to build a thriving business, what it is that you can do to actually have the clients that you deserve, and most importantly, get paid what you're worth. So check out the turnkey business plan and clearly see what it is you can do in order to offer cash services and have a full service business. Now, as it relates to a summary of our call, this has been a great conversation. One, her story at the beginning there in South Africa, coming here to the United States after traveling around the world and choosing to settle in Los Angeles. What an amazing story, an adventure in and of itself. Obviously, very independent. And in doing so, she was able to grow up, get the college degree that she did in accounting, and more importantly, start her accounting business, building a 7-figure firm for which she could be very, very successful, but ultimately sell it. She learned some things in that growth. Obviously, the acquiring of those 2 businesses was a success. She was able to retain 80% of those customers, and that was very important. But at the same time, she realized that it was probably a little bit much having them stick around for as long as they did. But more importantly, when she left, realizing that she stuck around too long when selling her own business. It's one of those things where you just need to have that cleaner break so that you can actually work on the business and take it over so that they can actually, as clients, see who is the one now running the business. The other thing that I thought was also very important is this CAS discussion. We were talking about what is full service accounting services. What is it to actually meet in the CFO advisory space with your clients? All of that I think is very valuable, but one of the realizations that I understood is the fact that we don't individually have to be the ones providing all these services. It's running an organization that can clearly meet these needs of our clients. The other thing that we talked about that was also very important was the idea of remote work. She basically said it well when she pointed out that whether they be here in the United States or in India or in Philippines, it's just them as individuals, or seeing them as persons doing the work. And in doing so, are they able to do it effectively and productively? And if we can empower them to be successful, taking care of the tasks that they've been assigned, then they'll be happy, we'll be happy. We talked about culture, the fact that in finding a quality people, A players, we need to realize, first of all, it comes down to culture. Are we able to have our employees refer the work that we're doing so that they can have their friends, birds of a feather flock together, come and join us and actually, as accounting professionals, meet the needs of our clients? It's really providing that culture, that environment that enables people to come and stick around and stay. The other part of that was obviously the investment that we can make in our employees, making sure that we're actually giving them the tools and resources to be successful. So for me, lots of great highlights. I appreciated the fact that she was able to comment on her children, seeing that they have choice, giving them the power of choice to recognize that they can choose for themselves what they want to do, but also that work is fun, something that we get to do, something that she chooses to do. Wonderful little insights that I think are ones to recognize as we reflect on what it is we're doing as we run our businesses. So, Wendy, what is a final thought you'd like to share with everyone?
If I can, you can.
Short and succinct, to the point. I like it. All right, Wendy, this has been a pleasure. I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights. For my listeners, let me just kind of conclude with a few quick little statements. One, if you haven't already, subscribe. Subscribe to the podcast. Why? Because each and every week we have on the show experts, individuals to help us work on our business to, in fact, enable us to offer quality accounting services and become the premier accounting firm in our area. As it relates to the show, we have actually a number of playlists that we've put together, highlights of the various episodes that I've had over the years. In those highlights, you'll actually find that we've collected the playlist in basically topical things such as marketing, selling, staffing, tech stacks, mental health, just various things that you might find more relevant to your current situation. So I invite you to go to universalaccounting.com, and there in the navigation, find the podcast section where we've compiled these highlights so that you can go binge listen these playlists and actually hear from the experts those things that you need to know and understand as it relates to growing your business, offering quality accounting services, working efficiently and profitably so that you can, in fact, get paid what you're worth. So go there and listen to those, binge list those various episodes and get the information you're needing to act on your business today. The other thing I want to do is invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference that we have for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It's here as owners. We get together and hear from the experts from the stage, those various things that we need to be doing to work on our business. It's where we meet each other as peers, what it is we're doing. Here, build friendships and at the same time collaborate so that we can better take care of the needs of our clients. It's a wonderful experience that I would love to have you come and join us and meet with me there. So if you haven't already, register for GrowCon. Lastly, I want to point out, if you'd like more information regarding these topics that we've discussed here today or other principles that we've been discussing, feel free to reach out to us. You can go to our online presence, which is universalaccountingschool.com, or you can actually give us a phone call at 801-265 3777. With that being said, always remember this: accounting success is universal. Take care, have a great day, and be safe out there. Wendy, that was awesome.
That was fun. We could talk for hours.
Certainly can. No, we had a blast. I think we covered a lot of things. That was great. So here's what I'm going to have you do now. I'm going to have you record that little promo piece.
Okay. Tell me when to go.
When you're ready.
This is Wendy Barlin. It was so much fun to record with Roger an episode of Building the Premier Accounting Firm. We discussed all things firm, from people to processes to profit, and I invite you to listen and join us.
Perfect. That is awesome. Well, first of